Hey everyone, welcome back to Oasis Zoo. And we're changing up the format again. In our last episode, we kind of had a little bit of an intro, but I'm moving our tour to the end of the video. And more so because I'm actually going to provide a little bit more of a commentary when it comes to that tour. And I really hope that that's something that you guys enjoy. But we are back in Oasis Zoo today with a focus on building up a new exhibit. And we're going to focus on an exhibit for the Somali Wild Ass. And an equine animal that surprisingly lives in the desert. It's not something that you would normally hear about, and I'm really kind of excited to bring that here. We're doing something a little different. We're going to go ahead with another exhibit, very similar to the Obsidian Oasis in terms of having a water feature that's going to separate. It's going to act as a moat for the overall exhibit. This allows us to keep the exhibit closer to the ground and also allows us to kind of keep our natural barriers down as well. We don't want to necessarily have a giant stone or glass barrier in the way. So we decided to go with something a little different than what we've seen in the zoo proper. And I think there's a few takeaways from this as well. Of course, we started off with a very North African feel, very old feel, and I'm kind of excited to kind of bring a little bit more when it comes to these newer, more modern ideas, which truthfully provides a better idea of what a zoo would actually look like. Now, as before with most of our other builds, one of the first things that we're focusing on today is actually just the barrier and getting a barrier set up. And I've been a huge fan of the glass barriers, having glass walls in place, things like that. And I think it's really turned out quite well. And I think that the overall build is quite nice. Now, I did try to go for something a little bit different this time with having like a little bit of a glass lip on the actual barrier. So if you were to think, if you've ever been to a zoo, sometimes you see these on the banisters or the balconies where they'll have glass sticking up a little bit higher. It's more of an aesthetic feel, and then go from there. I've also added these little pole toppers. I don't actually really know the real name for it, but the idea behind it is just to give it a little bit more flair with the overall build. Now, I will admit there was one thing that I kind of made a mistake on with this from the very beginning, and that's actually putting a path down before I put down the barriers. And we're seeing a little bit of that struggle right now, actually. When it comes to having the sand, it's not terraformed, it's not an overly flat surface. So we end up actually going back through and removing the path and then resetting it after I've terraformed. And if there's something I'm going to learn from that is, again, make sure I terraform before I place down my path. And I think it definitely helps out. I will say I am frustrated with the overall path system, and the reason why is, of course, is the way it terraforms. I wished you could have paths that would provide a little bit of a better terraforming aspect of it, but you can kind of see what I mean by we went through and terraformed and then we added the path back in. And it does kind of give it a little bit of a better feel, especially with the concrete barrier acting as a kind of like an additional kind of walkway. Now, in reality, if you were at a normal zoo, the concrete is where everybody would go to stand. Understandably, we can't get the path that close, but one could hope that this is the intent behind the overall barrier. I am using these cladding pieces as well, just to kind of fill in a little bit of the gaps. I've been watching more videos on YouTube about these overall builds and trying to pick up some additional skills and stuff like that. And I definitely think this is one that kind of seals the deal for me. It kind of gives it a more straight line when it comes to the overall build, and it gives it a little bit of a cleaner look. And I am a big fan of having something slightly cleaner when it comes to these types of barriers. But yeah, it works out. Now, the other thing that we're going to start building on, of course, is actually our staff building. I'm a big fan of staff buildings, and in the tour, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But, my belief is that when you have a staff building, you're going to want to have something that's very close to your overall exhibit. This works for a few reasons. It provides a place for your staff to stay away from the public. It allows them to kind of do their job in peace, but it also acts as an education focus point as well. I think about the Toronto Zoo, more so because it is the closest zoo for me. And they have this really cool, unique feature, which is you can actually go behind the scenes with the keepers of the specific exhibits, and you can actually see what goes into a normal day for them. And I would imagine, for those lucky guests who did want to explore that, they could actually go through and take a look. Now we have taken your feedback as well, of course. One of the repeat feedback that I keep on getting in the Discord, and of course in the comments as well, is adding a little bit more color flair to the overall build, and I think that this really did it. Marrying the white with a brighter orange at this time gives it a little bit closer to that African feel that I wanted to go for as we move away from North Africa into Central Africa and South Africa. So I did try to marry the overall feel of the exhibit and the zoo itself, and so we have those straight lines that we would normally anticipate or associate with the North Africa, and then we kind of moved on from there. Had to adjust a few things, of course, just to accommodate a glass window for the keeper set, so that they're in there, they can kind of look out, see what the animals are doing, and making sure that they're okay, of course, from the safety of their keeper set. And I think it does kind of have a nice feel to it. Now I did add a few more pots, more so to get the color associated with it. If there's anything that I'm finding from the overall packs, or with Africa specifically, it's a very colorful pack. There's a lot of colors associated with it. North Africa is a very drab pack. It's there's a lot of grays and whites and dark reds and stuff like that. So we kind of went around with a few brighter items as well. I am a big fan of closing off the entrances, and initially I used this plank from I believe this is actually from a North African pack as well, and it was okay, and I actually ended up going back and changing it again. And so it's funny because one of the other viewers, one of the Discord members, Sparrow, who has her own YouTube channel, actually commented. She was like, "I love to use the metal beams, and I can see why the metal beams they're significantly better when it comes to kind of making those doorways look a little nicer." Now we did extend our path over just to kind of provide that continuous barrier. Weirdly enough, because of the way I had set up this little step, I had to finagle the barrier a little bit to kind of make it work, and it took a little bit to get there. It kind of looks a little janky, but I think it works out quite well. Now we're kind of getting onto the terraforming and the actual exhibit itself. We've done a lot of the work on the inside. Now it's time to work on the outside, and I actually made this off screen, and part of the reason why is it took me about an hour to get this made. And this is a real rock wall, and I'm quite happy about this. Now, a lot of the building materials actually came from the stalagmites. Pieced together a lot of the tall stalagmites, and then used a lot of the smaller ones, turn them around and use their, kind of the ends to kind of give it a more natural feel. And then I just adjusted the colors a little bit. I will say one thing, the rocks are good, but this is significantly better. It just looks a lot cleaner, looks a lot nicer. I did see a few photos of exhibits where they had this kind of two-tier system. So when they're building or when they're working on the exhibit, they'd have an upper tier and a lower tier, and the idea behind it being that it just provides it a little bit of extra 3D depth. And I tried to emulate in this build, and I'm quite happy with how it actually turned out. It kind of breaks up it a little bit. It's not just at one flat or one exhibit level, but rather it's quite larger. You are noticing as well that I did place the walls, and they are quite expensive in franchise mode. So if you do want to go this route, I definitely recommend Sandbox, because it's a very large money sink to make these walls. But I did place them back to back, and the reason why is because I can envision that we're going to add another exhibit right next to the Somali Wild Ass, and it might be a smaller one. I did struggle a little bit with the barrier, and I actually struggled because of the way the terraforming was what happened, and that's on me again. Terraforming, it's bane of my existence when it comes to this game. Sometimes I keep on forgetting to do that, but we had to make do, and I do notice that there's a gap there, and I'm sure everybody else did notice that as well. Rest assured, we are going to close that gap, and we're going to make it a lot better. So we cleaned up the overall exhibit walls, set them all up all the way around the overall exhibit, and it's not as large as I was hoping for. And I think part of that is because obviously we do have the water mixed in with it, and that eats into the size a little bit. But I think for what we're looking to do, it definitely does the work. Now you are seeing those Arctic rocks come back into play here. And struggling a little bit getting the right color, but we find it there. But I use them more as the end caps to kind of just cover a little bit of the ends there. Now we did do a little bit of a jump. I was struggling with a few things, and I ended up kind of deleting them all. Didn't feel that you guys wanted to see that, so we did have a little bit of a jump cut to get to this next spot, which is really we're finally putting in the enrichment items, and then now we have to figure out the where the Somali Wild Ass are going to sleep. We do need that hard shelter, and we need to make sure that it looks good and it kind of fits in with the overall exhibit. And you can kind of see that coming to play. Initially, it was quite small, so I did make it a little bit larger, and I did fight a little bit with this exhibit. And I think part of it is the way that I set it up, the axis, the movement axes are all kind of a little bit messed up. So things are a little crooked and sideways. So I do make do with it, and I kind of found that copying and pasting the one side to the next actually works out a lot better. But we do finally have the wall set up, and we're gonna put in our bedding, our grass bedding. And I added a little bit of some plank walls just to kind of give it a little bit more flavor, and then break up the plaster walls itself. Again, I think that with I'm quickly finding that when you're building in Planet Zoo, it does pay off to kind of layer on top of each other. Same with these end caps, kind of adding in these wood end caps to give it a little bit more realism to the overall build, because you wouldn't just have a plaster wall. You would have end caps kind of holding the anchoring the ends and everything like that. Again, you're seeing that copy and paste aspect come back in, kind of just making it work out. And it does actually work with the overall build. Now we went with the thatch roofs. Part of that is, again, getting that African feel associated with it. But I also think it actually kind of fits with the colors. We could have gone with, maybe more of a wood roof or a more natural roof. We could have put some rocks or something like that. But, overall, I think that this really kind of, made it look really nice. And I've never been a big fan of using these end pieces, but it definitely works out to kind of give it a little bit of an extra lip. Now we did have to cover the back, and I wanted to use the thatch roofs again, but the flat roofs just didn't really work out. I found that they kind of looked a little dreary, a little bland. So I did make do with the, repositioning the curved roof, the 1 meter roofs, and giving a little bit more flavor. Did want to cover off the edges as well. I wasn't really sure what to do with them before I stumbled across these end pieces, and it kind of just pieced it together. Although we did have to manually curve the end pieces, but again, it actually looks quite nice. It does have a very finished and a very good look overall with how that build turns out. Now, the last aspect of the habitat, or the inside of the habitat anyway, is of course nature. We do need to get some more foliage going. We need to get some greenery in there, and we started with a little bit of rocks just to break up the rock walls that we had, the man-made rock walls, and then we're gonna stick true with at least on land, we're gonna stick true to the actual desert foliage pack. And if there's anything that I really love about this pack, it's got to be this bush. It's so versatile for what it can do. By far my favorite piece to utilize. It doesn't add a whole lot of green, and I think and you're kind of seeing it, we're utilizing the yellow, the dry grass. It fits really well with the overall theme of this sandy exhibit. We are placing these green trees and just utilizing the tops of the trees to add a little bit more color to the rock walls, but that would make sense. With these rock walls, they would naturally collect a lot of moisture, especially at night, and that moisture would feed those green bushes on those rock walls. Now, we do have to work a little bit more on the aquatic aspect of the exhibit. We're utilizing, very similar to the black rhino exhibit, we're utilizing the reeds to kind of cover the walls. And, considering we're not going to be the ones that see it, it's going to be more for the animals. It's really just to kind of give them that semblance of, being a little bit more in their natural habitat. We want to kind of provide something that's going to give them as much of their natural home as possible. Now, this is the one part that I was kind of torn about. And, we mentioned this in the last video, is the struggle with these water lines. It's been a struggle always for me, and I don't really know what to do. And we started placing off these aquatic rocks, colored them to the same color as everything else, placed them around, and it really looked bare. It didn't have a good look to it. Did try to do some terraforming. I'm definitely aware that there was some green there, but I struggled a lot in trying to find something that would fit here. I settled initially on the roots before I decided to go with the dry grass again. It makes more sense for us to have dry grass again here than a roots or anything like sticking around. And it was a step in the right direction. And I think this is where, and I do comment on it later in the video, but this is where I, was kind of mentioning it with the in our Discord, and Sparrow kind of came up with the idea of utilizing branches. But I also wanted to add more of these rocks, and I kind of placed around a few, and I added a little bit more, kind of sunk them in a little bit using the same piece. And I gotta say, this really kind of gave it a little bit more life. And this is the most I've ever utilized this rock before, but I see the benefit of utilizing these rocks in this manner. It definitely adds a little bit more color. It breaks up that flat sand line that we had going on, and it really kind of comes together. We do extend it onto the shore as well. We got to get it up there, but again, sinking it in and running with just one piece like this, it definitely kind of closed the gap for us on making this exhibit a little bit more realistic. Now we are coming to the end of our speed build. Our exhibit's kind of taking shape. You can kind of see I did forget to place the trees. I had to go back and place them in. That's on me. But it's taking shape, and I think we're pretty much there. There's a few small minor things that we wanted to add in, but a lot of this is something that you've already seen. But overall, very happy with how the build turned out. Of course, I would love to hear your feedback on the overall build. I'd love to hear your feedback on the channel as well, how you think that I'm doing or how you think that we're growing. And your feedback is always appreciative. I do try to read all the comments and try to respond back to every comment as well. And I just want to say thank you very much for those who are commenting and viewing these episodes. It makes me feel really happy, and it gives me lets me know that I'm doing a good job, and I do appreciate that. So I'm going to leave the commentary here. I think that you've heard me talk enough, but stay tuned because we do have a tour of the overall build at the very end with a little bit more of my thoughts on the way we built it. But I do want to say thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I wish you all the best. As promised, I'm here to give you a full tour of our new exhibit for the Somali Wild Ass. Now, Conservation Canada is committed to the continued research and development for conservation tactics when it comes to endangered species. And the Somali Wild Ass definitely fits that bill, with less than 200 remaining in the wild. A creature that is critically endangered has a fitting home in Oasis Zoo. So as we come up to the Legends of the Desert exhibit, we can kind of see our staff building, and I'm quite happy with how this turned out with a mixture of North African architecture, those straight lines with the colors associated with South Africa. I think it works really well. But we're not here for the staff building. Now you are going to notice something that did happen off camera is we have started terraforming for our next exhibit. I'm not sure what we're going to place here, but it is large enough for some of our larger animals. So if you have any recommendations, by all means, leave a comment. Let me know what you think we should put here. Weirdly enough, they are sitting on their second path to kind of view the exhibit itself, and as we kind of come around, we can kind of see why. The Somali Wild Ass they do tend to kind of hang out at the very top. You can't really see them from where we are, but we are trying to get them to kind of come around and to the front. We might have to do something to get them to come down here to kind of interact with the guests a little bit more. But I gotta say, this exhibit definitely turned out really well. And looking at it from the ground, it definitely provides a different perspective for how we've built it. And again, I think the star of the show has to be the rock walls that we've built and put together. They really just kind of hold it and make it look a little bit more unique than what we're used to seeing in Planet Zoo. And as we kind of continue around, you can kind of see the addition of those trees kind of breaking up the water and sand lines. I will admit, even just having 3 so close to the water edge definitely adds a little bit more extra flair to the overall exhibit. As we kind of continue down to the final side, we can finally see a good view of the Somali Wild Ass. It's just checking out some of the exhibits, and it's going for perfect timing. Went for a little bit of a jump, and we have a little baby wild ass as well. See that, not sure, maybe they'll jump in the water, who knows, but I think it's a perfect timing for this tour, and I couldn't have timed it better myself. So that's the end of it. It's a little bit of a smaller exhibit, but I think that for what it provides, it's really big at the same time. Couldn't have asked for more, and I think that it's really worked out. Of course, I would love to hear your feedback on the overall build. This is one way for me to improve. This is how we improve together. Your feedback is something that I always listen to, and I take very dear to my heart. So of course, feel free to leave more comments. Let me know what you think. If you're feeling up to it as well, I would love for you to subscribe. It definitely lets me know I'm doing a good job, helps me out as well, and I would appreciate that. Otherwise, we do have a Discord. I think I mentioned it a few times. If you want to interact and kind of come over and hang out with us, that is the community to kind of do it in. We're always there. Everybody's kind of always engaged. We have people across the globe have been part of this Discord, so it's usually pretty busy all throughout the day. So by all means, you're welcome to join, and we would be happy to have you. And then lastly, of course, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for all of your feedback. Thanks for all of your support so far. It's definitely helped out, and it makes me enjoy doing what I'm doing right now. Otherwise, the last thing, and of course, just want to say ciao for now, everybody.